em Budapeste. O Peter, ele é o Product Manager do Blind Spotter, que é uma solução da Balabit de análise de comportamento humano. Ele já está na Balabit há 8 anos, como desenvolvedor e agora Product Manager, e gerencia também toda a linha de logs da Balabit. O Victor, ele é um engenheiro da Balabit desde 2011, já participou de vários projetos, inclusive aqui no Brasil, tem sido nosso apoio aqui. Os dois aí são fãs do Brasil nas Olimpíadas. Então eu vou passar a apresentação para os nossos amigos e vamos começar a nossa apresentação. Peter and Victor, be welcome to our webinar about the security intelligence on access control and human behavior analysis, please.
Okay, so thank you very much for the introduction, Flavio. My name is Victor Varga. I am going to start the presentation today, and Peter Gyongyosi is here with me as well. He will take over the presentation at a certain part.
Hello everyone, welcome to your webinar.
So, probably this picture on the screen might be familiar for most of you. This is the Great Wall from the Game of Thrones, which was one of the most popular series nowadays. And basically we chose this picture to represent what is happening or what has been happening in the IT security in the past 10 or 20 years. What is the purpose of this wall in the series, in the story? The purpose was to keep all the wilds and all the strange creatures out of the land, and basically it worked very well. It helped the people to leave them out. It helped the people to protect their land, to protect their family, to protect their assets and houses. However, if you think about how strange and how difficult, how challenging was the life of the protectors, of those who were defending the land from the enemy. And if you think about it, worked in the series, but nowadays in our land, it would not work simply because we are not living in the medieval ages. However, we are living in modern cities like this one that you can see on the screen now. It's basically a free city with blue skies, with open streets. Everyone is free to do anything that they would like to do. However, there is one big difference, namely that we have police, we have organizations, we have people around us who serve us, who protect us. What they are doing, they are watching. They are watching what we are doing. They are watching if we are doing it according to the law, according to what is allowed by the law or the regulations. And if there is something happening, they start the investigation. How do they start the investigation? Basically, they have the information. If there is a crime scene, they start to collect evidences. Footprints, haircuts, whatever evidence, and based on the information they have and collect, they start to figure out what may have happened in the past. And this analogy is something that Balabit is providing, is putting into the layer of the IT security as well. Instead of the Great Wall, like in the Game of Thrones, we are focusing onto the people and letting them to live in the modern cities like we do in our everyday life. How do this put into the level of the IT? All the analyst reports, all security specialists, everyone is arguing about insider and external threats. What is typical in these attacks nowadays? These all start with some kind of account theft, stealing the accesses, getting the privileges of those who have access to our most sensitive data or information that we would like to protect. And once they have the access, basically they are roaming around our IT infrastructure without any control. Bruce Schneier said many years ago that we should focus onto the people and we should watch the people, what they are doing, how do they behave. And Balabit is making this reality nowadays with its brand new contextual security intelligence portfolio. Balabit is on the security field for more than 50 years, and it's specialized in advanced monitoring technologies, basically the perfect core technology that helped us to achieve great revenue increase year to year. And basically, besides the great core technology we have great recognition as well worldwide, which is coming from the SysOGNG. I don't know if you have ever heard about it. Probably there are some people who have a source of Linux cert from the beginning of your career, but nowadays not even in Amazon Kindle, but also in the BMW i3, the SysOGNG Balabit product is used. Of course, it's important to mention that although we are growing, our hands do not reach everywhere. And therefore, we are building a channel as well, of which NetBR is one of the value-added member of the global partner channel at Balabit. So with any technical questions or any inquiries, not just regarding this webinar, but regarding any other products, feel free to contact NetBR. After this short introduction, let us introduce how this brand new world, this freedom, is made available for you. As I mentioned in the beginning with the police, the investigation always starts with collecting data. And when we talk about collecting data in the world of the IT, it always starts with log management, event logs, syslogs, whatever textual information that provides valuable information for you to any kind of analysis. This is a must. Many years ago, it was told about ERP system that it is a must, like the water closet in the buildings. But being a must does not mean that it is sufficient. What log management can do, it provides you the ability to collect all the information from all your devices that is generating this textual log data. Of course, we would like to leave the noise. We are not interested in everything. And especially if we talk about some sensitive data like customer information, personal information, financial information, credit card data, or whatever, besides sending it to any log analysis system, it is important to keep it in a secure and well-protected place. That's what log management provides, but it has its limitations as well. As I mentioned, must, but not sufficient. Why it is not sufficient? We are focusing on to the people, what the people are doing on our systems. Nowadays, the most critical systems are not SIG clients, but running in the cloud or in the server room of the organization, and the people having access to these are accessing them remotely. But what about this remote access? What information do we have about this remote access? It is nothing typically, just a login and a logout event. What is happening between logging in and logging out? This is something, if there is no sophisticated event log, audit event logging of the system, we have never get information about. And the problem is that most systems do not provide such sophisticated audit layer. But how shall we get the information we are looking for? The answer for that, on behalf of Balabit, is privileged activity monitoring. But what does it mean technically? Let's imagine you have one single system that is independent from everything. It is independent from the client. Either if it is a desktop, if it is a laptop, it is an iPad or whatever, it does not matter. Also, it is independent from the systems, so it doesn't matter if it is a server, if it is a mainframe, if it is a network device. It's not an issue. It's independent, and as it is shown on the screen, it's basically sitting right within the remote connection. It is transparent, so the users will not recognize any difference. It is also transparent in a way that either being logged in, you have no chance to disable it. If you are an attacker and if you are looking for any agents protecting the system, you will not find it. Why? We do not use any agents. What this system does, basically, at first and most important, it provides high-quality audit information. Basically, it provides movie-like replay, as we were showing. It will be just like watching the CCTV. In addition, we would like to emphasize how important the free text search capability is. Just imagine, go back to the police. You have one single evidence, a footprint, a haircut, whatever. It is, let's imagine, in this case, you have an IP address. Do you have the information where this IP address came from? No, you just have an alert that something wrong happened. Okay, let's see if it was shown on the screen. Have you ever imagined so? No, because it's unique, but it's available. You just search for whatever text and it shows all the users on all servers, on all devices, whenever they have seen this IP address in their session. And second, it is important to mention that it has granular access control capabilities as well. Why it is important? Of course, there are policies. Let's go back to the wall that we started the presentation with. Yeah, that's important. We should have the walls, we should have the barriers. But what is important and what this solution with this independent watching provides is that you don't need to raise more barriers, more than what you need. If we just take a look to a demonstration, how does it look like? Just imagine a use case that you are logging into a Linux system, just like any other time. You are logging in with the root account. Here's the question: who you are? Of course, that's already a control which is important because we can have the information, the evidence, who you are when you are doing anything. Or, of course, it may not be you, it may be an attacker who just stole your account. Of course, it would be important to know who is behind it. At next, if I just hit the enter, you can see I am logged in with the root account without knowing the password. Again, the control, which sounds good, which sounds useful, because basically whoever gets the password of the root account, you may not be able to log in. Why? Because as you can see, I don't have the password of the root account, so anytime I would like to log in, I need to use this particular gateway, provide the information, who am I, and within the recordings, just like highlighted on the screen right now, we have full-blown information about who is the actual user starting the session. In addition, we do have the ability, as I mentioned, for movie-like replay, but it is not only a replay capability, but just like with the CCTV, as you can see, putting the two screens next to each other, basically I could do anything. Let's say, take a look around on this particular server. Where am I? Let's see which users are here. Maybe I find some personal information. Yeah, I have found the personal folder of Peter. Let's take a look if he has some dirty laundry here. No, no, nothing interesting. Okay, let's go away from here. However, let's see if there is something else which might be important. So I would like to take a look to the passwords. if I am following as a security officer this session, I could terminate myself the session from here. But of course, we do not have people watching the sessions day by day. Just imagine you have 200 administrators, each of them logged into the systems 8 hours a day. Of course, you don't want to have a guard sitting in the back of them. However, there may be an automotive in the system. Just look at this. I come back to my console, hit the enter, and my session is terminated automatically. This is basically done again by the system just because of the predefined rules that you had. So if we are watching again the capabilities of the shell control box, what we have here, movie-like playback, later on we can make fast free text search, for example, for the passvd file, which I just wanted to write on the screen. Also, we have find a real-time blocking of whatever harmful actions, either watching sensitive information or just shutting down the machine accidentally, so you don't need to be an attacker. And also, we have found a kind of follow mode, an escorted session, via the 4 eyes authorization feature of the privileged activity monitoring. So, as the basics, we have 2 types of information. We have not only the log data, however, we do have a complete look into what is exactly happening within the user session. We can search and replay anytime. So basically, if we would like to get to that new world with the modern city, we already have huge amount of information that is sufficient to start the analysis.
Okay, this is Peter speaking. Thank you, Victor, for the great introduction to your data collection layer. And as Victor said, at this point, we have a lot of information. We have gathered logs in a reliable way with sys.ng. We have recorded a video of what the admins did on those systems. We see their individual keystrokes. We see what they saw on their screens. But is that really enough? Is just having reliable data enough? Well, I don't think so. I think it's great and the mandatory first step, but it is not enough by itself. How do you know when those users are doing something bad? How do you know if they're using their credentials, their access, their privileges in a responsible and a compliant way? Well, you could review all that data manually, or you can try to hire people to do that for you. But you know, if there is one thing that that I could take away from all the discussions I had with CISOs or other leaders in the security industry throughout the last couple of years, is that it's really hard to find skilled analysts, people who know about security, people who understand what's going on in these enterprise systems, and people who are willing to do the job. So just trying to hire people to review all that data, that's a real difficult and a really expensive thing. Even if you are able to hire those people, do you really want to have them do the mind-numbing task of reviewing all those recordings day by day, every day? I think we can do better. And this is where our technology, the next stack in our technology layer can help. And this is where we start building, going beyond raw data and start building user profiles, which will be much more useful for security analysts, both when trying to find anomalies in real time or when doing forensics and analysis of an incident later on. How do you do that in enterprise? How do you build user profiles in such a situation? How do we do that with our technology? Well, the first step is to collect. Excuse me. Okay, I'll proceed. So the first step is to collect data from the existing data silos, data that is already available and data that is already being collected. Some examples of that can be seen on the left. log management systems and themes. We've talked about that. We have shown you what kind of data you can gather from privilege activity monitoring solution. But you can also gather information about who your users are from directory systems such as LDAP or Active Directory. And due to the pluggable architecture of our product, it is possible to integrate additional custom data sources if that's where the most important and most relevant data can be found. So this information is fetched by our user behavior analysis module called MySpotter, and it is analyzed in real time by the built-in big data or machine learning algorithms. Using the gathered data, it first establishes a profile for all users, and then it starts comparing activities to that baseline in real time. The results of that analysis is presented in multiple ways. On one hand, MySpotter, of course, provides a dashboard and an analytic UI for security teams to show them the suspicious activities and allow them to investigate the issues in more details. Highly suspicious events can also trigger alerts that are sent out for these teams. And it is also possible to initiate automated actions, such as blocking the connection of the user, what you have seen to be done just a couple of minutes ago based on a hard-coded rule of not allowing a person to access etc password. That can be done also as a result of a more in-depth security analysis or risk analysis of that action. And of course, MySpotter makes all the scoring, all the risk scores, and all the profiles it creates available via an API for third-party integrations. Before showing you how it all looks like in real life, I think it would be useful to say a few words about what is happening under the hood, what kind of algorithms we're using. There are two important things to recognize here. First is that when it comes to the mathematics of behavior analysis or outlier detection, generally speaking, is that there is just no need to reinvent the wheel. There are algorithms out there that have been proven to be effective through decades worth of usage in different industries such as retail or financial fraud detection. The challenge here was to apply the same mathematical principles in this domain, in the domain of security analytics, and that's what we did. The other key fact here is that MySpotter does not rely on one single magic algorithm that would find all anomalies. Rather, it utilizes several different algorithms, all of which take a look at the data from a different angle, and then it combines their results. Now, let me show you a couple of examples of the different algorithms that we are using here. We've already shown you the, or in second, I will show you the simplest one of them, which is the technique called kernel density analysis. We're using this algorithm to find out when users are typically active. The technique of frequent item set mining or association rule learning is something that is used very frequently in retail. This is how Amazon learns that you are likely to buy a tent when you buy both some hiking boots and a sleeping bag, because people tend to buy those things together. We can do the very same thing in this domain as well. We can find things like when connections to a given server or from a different network segment tend to happen together, and we can find cases when it stops happening that way, and when things start to happen differently. Cluster analysis is again a machine learning technology that is quite widely used, but it is also useful when we're trying to find peer groups based on behavior. Database admins tend to log on to the same servers and use similar commands, while, say, for example, salespeople use very different services in a very different way. Outlier activities that are not typical for a users group, like the sysadmin suddenly downloading data from Salesforce.com, can be detected using this algorithm. And when we have more detailed information, such as the screen contents or the user input as recorded by chat control logs, as you've just seen a couple of minutes ago, this is when we can start applying more advanced or more advanced algorithms to do a more in-depth analysis of what's going on. We can do a bit of a text analysis, similarly to algorithms that try to find plagiarism in papers submitted by students. We can analyze what kind of applications the user started or what kind of comments the user issued. And if they start doing things that they did not do before, we can recognize that and we can alert for that. But we can go beyond that. Maybe you have recognized that we are recording every single keystroke in the input, and we are in graphical protocols, we are recording every single flick of the mouse. Now we can use that to build up a biometric profile of every user. The way you're typing, the way you're moving your mouse identifies you pretty well, and we can analyze that as well. And we can find cases when it is somebody else who is sitting behind the keyboard or who is grabbing that mouse or using the touchpad. And also, we can go beyond just anomaly detection. We can take a look at the profiles of users and at a wall, and we can recognize the cases of risky behavior. We can find risky profiles in general. One very good example of that would be when a personal account is used for scripted activities, such as backup jobs or license checks. That is not an attack per se, but can be very risky because that means that the credentials of that account are saved somewhere within a script. And if the attacker gets hold of that script, he would get the keys to the kingdom, which is not a good thing. We do not want them to get that. So let me just show you how it looks like in real life. Let me just find my mouse there. Hold on. Hopefully you can now see the screen of Shell Control Box again. Let me just jump over to the UI for behavior analysis module, which is called MySpotter, and show you the different user profiles that we're building. So as an example, let's take a look at my profile, how I personally am interacting with the system usually. So let's take a look at this profile. For each and every user in the system, we are trying to gather as much information as we can to a single pane of glass so that the security analyst can get a very quick overview of who they're investigating, who they're dealing with. Of course, we are bringing in as much information as we can from Active Directory or LDAP. This is what you can see on the top part of the screen. You can see that we brought in my photos, that this is how it looks like, but also my group membership, my different contact information, and basically every information that is available about me within Active Directory. That can be very useful because that allows the security analyst to get a very quick understanding of who am I. But also, we are immediately showing a quick overview of my behavioral patterns for the security analyst. This is a quick overview, but we can go into details and see the different algorithms that I've just described in action. So let's take a look at when I'm usually active. So you can see that on this chart, you can see my activity profile. When am I usually active? So you can see that, well, I live and work in Budapest, and I'm not an early bird. So you can see that I start working at around 10 or 11 a.m. UTC and go home at around 7 or 6 p.m. UTC. So this is how my profile looks like. I work a bit more in the afternoon when the caffeine finally kicks in. But also, we're not only analyzing when a user is active, but also how active a user is. For example, an activity for me at 11 a.m. would be perfectly normal, but 100 activities an hour would be highly unusual, even during my peak activity hours. So this is another type of analytics we're doing. When am I usually active, and if that activity is out of that range, or how active I am, and if my current activity level is outside of what's normal for me. We are also analyzing what kind of services or hosts I am accessing. You can see here the list of the most typical services or the services I'm connecting to the most frequently. Of course, I'm connecting to BlindSpotter itself quite frequently because I'm demonstrating the product as I'm doing now, but I'm also accessing some other servers in this demo test lab as well. What you can see on the right-hand side of the screen is the cluster analysis or peer group analysis in action. So rather than just building a profile for me by myself, we're also comparing every user account to the other user accounts on the system based on their different patterns, in this case, different behavioral patterns, in this case, the way or the services we are accessing. And based on that, we're able to come up with the peer groups. And in that case, you can see that my activities are quite similar to the activities of this account and the account of Andrew and the account of Molly and the account of Thomas. So let's take a look at the account of Andrew, for example. And if we take a look at his host profile, you can see that he's been accessing similar services. So I've been accessing BlindSpotter and DB01 and Gateway01, and he's been accessing quite similar servers most frequently. This is again very useful for the security analysts of large enterprises for whom individual user accounts might not be much because there are thousands or even tens of thousands of users in the system. But this would allow that analyst to compare user accounts, individual user accounts to other users that would be their peers, which can speed up an investigation quite a lot. We're also analyzing the contents of the traffic that we record with our session recording module, Track Control Box. And this is an example of that. Here, this is my command profile. These are the commands that I'm issuing on the servers I'm connecting to. And you can see that I'm doing quite basic things, basically checking if services are running, maybe changing some really basic things, shutting down services, shutting down systems, those kind of things. Nothing extraordinary really here, but for every user, we're building up these profiles, and that allows the sysadmins or the security analysts to again get a quick understanding of who that person is, what kind of commands that person is usually issuing, basically what is that guy doing on those servers. And all the analytics I've shown you so far were analytics of a single property of the user's activities. So, for example, the analysis of what kind of services I'm accessing, or the analysis of the different timestamps of my activities. But BlindSpotter goes beyond that and does a more complex analysis of the different aspects of my behavior and correlates those different data points about my activities. And this is what can be seen on this tab, which can currently be seen on the screen. This is the frequent item set mining algorithm that I've mentioned before in action. Here what you can see is that without being pre-programmed to know what kind of patterns to look for, BlindSpotter was able to establish these number of things about my behavior. It figured out that I'm mostly using the RDP protocol, using this port, the standard RDP port, to connect to services. It recognized that I'm mostly active on work days, and I'm mostly doing RDP sessions on work days. And also that I'm mostly active in the afternoon. And I'm mostly enabling this forwarding. It was able to recognize these things, again, without being trained to know what kind of patterns to look for. So for other users, it might find very different type of patterns, but again, these can be very strong patterns. And all of my activities could be compared to these patterns in real time. So let me now jump back to my slides just for a second. So far, what we have and what we've shown you is how we are gathering reliable data, because without reliable data, you cannot trust any analytics. Basically, garbage in, garbage out is the old saying here. And in the last couple of minutes, I try to show you how we can go beyond raw data and build up behavioral profiles for users. What kind of profiles we're building, basically. But we're going even beyond that. We're not just building those profiles up for visualization or to help the work of security analysts during a forensics investigation. Rather, we are also comparing activities to those behavioral profiles and identifying cases of risky behavior in real time and allow security teams to intervene in real time immediately before a large-scale data breach would happen. In the remaining part of this presentation and this webinar, I'd like to show you how it looks like in real time, in practice. So again, what we're trying to do here is to find the needle in the haystack. We're applying machine learning algorithms to detect anomalies in user behavior. We're doing that without requiring you or ourselves to maintain a huge set of rules, similarly to what you'd have to do in this SE solution. Whether we are learning what's usual in your environment or the environment of your customers, and find cases of activities that differ, that are outliers compared to that baseline. We're assigning a real-time risk score to each and every asset in the system, each and every user in the system, and send out alerts if there's a large deviation from that baseline. And that allows security teams to intervene in real time. Let me jump back to my demo environment. Hopefully you can see my browser again and the blind spot UI again. So there are different ways to get to the most interesting activities within the system. One possibility would be to use this main dashboard, which shows how the criticality level of the entire system looked like in the past 24 hours, or even going beyond that, how it looked like historically. There is also the possibility to see the most important activities in the say last 1 week or the last one, last day, last month, and so on and so forth. And also it is possible to see the most interesting hosts and the most interesting users. These are the hosts on which the most interesting things happened, and these are the users that did the most risky things recently. But let's go back to this main dashboard, because that would allow us to show you how all these things are combined. So as you can see here, there's a bit of a peek. Something interesting was going on last evening. And what you can see here is that how we are collecting and assembling a top list of the most critical users, most interesting users at every point in time in the past. And you can see that this peak was caused by Mr. Andrew Pullman. He was doing some really interesting things in the middle of the night last evening. So let's take a look at what was going on there. What you can see now is Andrew's behavioral profile, similarly to the profile that you saw before about me. Very similar things are learned about Andrew as well. We know when that person is usually active, on work days and on weekends, what kind of comments he's usually using, what kind of patterns we know about, or we mind with the data set about his behavior, what kind of services he's usually accessing. What we also have here is a timeline, all of his activities. Oops, I zoomed in a bit too much, so let's zoom back. Yes. So what you can see here are all of his activities within the system. If you can remember the slide about the architecture of our solution, you can remember that BlindSpotter pulls all the information about all the activities of every user in the system or every user that we're willing to monitor, and analyzes those activities in real time. And the result of that analytics can be seen on this timeline. You can see the activities that Andrew performed recently. And you can see that indeed he started doing some really interesting things last evening. Before that, all of his activities were green. They all fit into what's normal for Andrew, but there were a large number of activities last evening that were quite unusual, and hence they were highlighted as in red. So let's zoom into one of these activities. What you can see here is again a very important concept of BlindSpotter, and that is that we're not trying to be a black box solution. We are not only saying that, okay, this activity was suspicious because our magic algorithms told us that it should be investigated. Whether we are always arguing for assessment. For each and every activity, we are saying what we thought to be okay about this activity and what we thought to be unusual about this activity. And you can see this very assessment about this activity here on the screen. So you can see that we think that this happened at an unusual point in time. The connection went to an unusual host, but it's more or less fitting to what's normal for this user. You can also start investigating these claims in details as well. So, for example, we can immediately compare that activity to the baseline of the user. You can see that Andrew is again probably working somewhere close to London, but is probably a more early bird than I am. But still, an activity in the middle of the night would be highly unusual for Andrew. Also, you can see that Andrew has never really connected to this server before. So that is unusual about this activity. And also, we can take a look at the different commands that were issued in this service, in this session. And you can see that we can recognize commands that were unusual for Andrew. If we take a look at the command profile of Andrew, let's just go back here. We can see that Andrew looks like a normal Unix or network admin type of guy. He's mostly issuing commands like IP or graph or process or service or ping. What he never did before is dealing with databases. So when in this session, you can see that he issued the command Postgres and pgdump and zipped up the results. We could recognize that this is something that is unusual for Andrew. Something weird is going on here. And indeed, if you know a bit about databases and know a bit about Unix, you can easily recognize what is going on here. He dumped an entire database, zipped it up, and copied it to a remote server, which is, well, really bad sign. Something really weird is going on here. Now, the results of all these analytics are combined together. And you can see that here. You can see that we have investigated this activity from 4 very different angles. We've investigated we investigated whether the point in time in which this activity happened is unusual or not. We investigated if the connection went to an unusual host. We investigated if this activity fit into what's normal for this user, if it fit into the normal patterns, activity patterns of this user. And also we investigated different commands that were issued within this session. And we combined the results of this analytics, and as a result of that, we figured out that this is a pretty interesting activity. But we also went beyond that. We saw that one strange activity can be an incident. It can happen by chance. A system had to be maintained in the middle of the night, or he had to step in and do something that a DB admin would normally do. But if a person starts doing weird things by the numbers, if he connects to all, as in this example, connects to all the servers in the system and issues highly unusual commands there in the middle of the night, these things add up, and as a result of that, we increased Andrew's risk score quite significantly. It pushed his risk score through the roof, and the result of that, probably an alert was sent out to the security team, and it could trigger an immediate investigation of Andrew's activities. I think there's we have time to show one further analysis that is a bit different from what I've shown you so far, and that is the scripted account detection algorithm that I've talked about before. So Linesoftware is capable of looking at all the user profiles in the system, and it is able to find users that look like basically like robots, who act like robots, who act like scripts instead of acting like humans. And as I said before, that is really important because that can allow security teams to discover cases of risky behavior. So when in this list, we can only see our accounts go like backup or license check or these kind of names. Then everything is fine. Those accounts are made to be used for these purposes. On the other hand, when you have personal accounts in this list, such as you have Amelia in this list, in this demonstration, that can be a really bad sign. And to be honest, this is a problem that we have found at every single installation that we did so far. In every single organization, including Balabit itself, we found cases when a lazy sysadmin set up a script to be run using his or her personal account, which is a huge security risk. So let's take a look at how we figured out that Amelia's account might be used by a script. Let's take a look at this step here. There are two basic analytics that we are doing here. The first one, the no downtime algorithm, uses the very simple fact that humans need to sleep and robots don't. So if we see an account that is active 24/7, that is a huge red flag. In that case, we can see that this account was active 96% of the time in the last 24 hours. Well, that can happen. In extreme cases, sometimes one needs to pull an all-nighter due to deadline. But we can also see that this account was active 99% of the time in the last 3 days. This is starting to be unbelievable. But the fact that this account was active 99% of the time in the last 7 days is a very strong signal that this account is used by a script and not by Amelia herself personally. The other analytics that we're doing investigates how periodic the user's activities are. Normally, we humans tend to be quite random. We tend to start things randomly. We are not really precise about how we're doing what we're doing. On the other hand, a script tends to start their activities very periodically, always at the same point in time. So this algorithm analyzes that very same thing, and what you can see in this chart is how periodic Amelia's activities are. You can see that the majority of Emilia's activity started at exactly 48 post-DR. Now, this is highly unlikely. A human tends to be quite random. A human's profile would be quite uniformly distributed. But in that case, you can see that Emilia started all of her activities, or almost all of her activities, at very exactly the same point in time, which is again a very strong signal that she's running a script using her personal credentials. And if you take a look at her timeline, you can see this happening. You can see that she's indeed running a backup job. Yes, she's running a backup job using her personal account. So I think that was all that I wanted to show you about blind spotters. So I think I will now hand it back to Victor for some final thoughts, and then to Flavio to wrap up this session and maybe allow you to ask some questions.
Thank you, Peter. So just as the final conclusion, probably you remember to where we started this presentation at. We started with the Great Wall from not China, from the Game of Thrones, and we showed you something which could be, which sought to be the future in the IT security, but with these solutions it could be implemented even today within your organization, which is basically a switch in IT security from the fact of building only on controls and policies to turn to security which is based on a cycle, which is based on a continuous process, which is based on knowing who our people are, just let them to do what they shall do, what they are entitled to do, the business as usual, and just to be in the background and watch and recognize if there is something nasty going on, even because they know they will be fired and this is their last month, they want to steal some data, even because if there is someone attacking and stealing his account and behaving in the name of this particular person, or for whatever reason, just to tell your security team that something is wrong within your IT organization. Don't make a decision. It is not the Skynet. It does not judge you. It does not tell that you are wrong or you are right. It just tells the security team that something is wrong and provides you with all the information that is required to make a decision that if it is an attack or just an accidental incident that is investigated. We would like to thank you from the Balabit side, and we would like to hand over the word again to Flavio, and thank you to NetBR as well for organizing this session for us. Flavio?
Yes.
Thank you so much, Peter
and Victor. Forgive us some light on this matter and showing us the presentation of monitoring controlling acts in a context of security intelligence. Now I'm speaking a little bit in Portuguese. Thank you so much, guys. Pessoal, obrigado pela presença. Tem algumas questões aqui que a gente vai responder por e-mail e entrar em contato. Qualquer um que tiver qualquer dúvida ou outra questão, é só falar com a gente. Espero que tenha dado uma visão um pouco melhor do que significa esse contexto de segurança de inteligência, que é o que a gente quer mostrar aí, né, o comportamento humano e o controle de acesso, né, juntos, para proporcionar uma camada de controle de segurança transparente sem causar impacto para o negócio. Então, agradeço a todo mundo. A gente vai disponibilizar a gravação também para quem não pôde entrar. Tenham todos um bom dia e até a próxima. Obrigado.